Well, our next guest is a hero, and you should all know her name, and you should share this story with everyone you know, everyone who cares about children, which should be all of us. But surprisingly, not everyone is on board with this. The Biden administration is not on board with talking about saving our children. Corporate media is not on board with talking about saving our children. And in fact, independent media is not on board with saving our children. Anytime we do a story that highlights the sex trafficking of children across the United States, we get blocked, we get banned, we get demonetized, and I can't put my finger on exactly why that is. Well, yesterday, the Senate held a committee meeting and had testimony from HHS whistleblowers and other whistleblowers who are blowing the lid off of the child sex trafficking operation in the United States with your U.S. tax dollars. You are paying for this. Why is there not more outrage about this? I don't know. Joining me now, though, is one of those heroes. And I want you to just take a look at her testimony from yesterday. This is Tara Rodas. She's an HHS whistleblower when called upon by Senator Chuck Grassley. Watch.
Senator Grassley and honorable senators, thank you for your tireless efforts to protect migrant unaccompanied children from abuse, neglect, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, and other unspeakable horrors.
And Tara joins us now. Thank you for being so brave, and thank you for the amazing work that you are doing. And I cannot believe the silence. It's absolutely deafening. And when I look at my three children, I mean, it really makes me sick to my stomach that more people aren't focused on this story. So welcome to the show, and thank you for everything that you're doing.
Well, Clayton, thank you so much for shining a light on what we now know is government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. It's absolutely shameful, and I really appreciate that you have been one of the consistent voices speaking the truth on this issue. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your bravery on this story. And I was stunned because you gave this testimony yesterday, and it's remarkable that when these Senate committee hearings like this, or whether it was COVID from Senator Ron Johnson, these things get banned and blocked, and they're only able to live stream them to the senators' own Facebook pages. Like, it's remarkable to me that there's not more coverage of this. Can I just ask you, why do you think that is? Why is there such deafening silence from corporate media? Why wasn't CNN there? Why wasn't Fox News there? Why weren't more people there covering this story on a national level?
Yeah, well, Clayton, I can't really speculate on why all these other media organizations weren't there. They should be questioned as to why they were not there, right? There's probably a myriad of reasons, but nobody wants to stand up to speak the truth about this unspeakable horror. Nobody wants, it seems, media outlets keep telling us, oh, it's just too dark to talk about. But how are we going to solve this problem if nobody's willing to talk about the truth of what's happening to these children? They are abused, neglected, and trafficked, and we need people to stand up for them. And that's what me and many of the other whistleblowers who you've had on your show are doing. And that's what we will do until these children are rescued.
Can you paint us a little picture here of your story, and then I want to get into the details of just how bad it is, and you can walk us through what is unfolding right now across the United States. But when was the moment that you decided to come forward and blow the whistle? I mean, you spent nearly 20 years in public service, and what was the moment that you noticed something was off and you decided to come forward?
Yeah, well, Deb White, who you've had on your show before, when the federal government said we have a crisis at the southern border, which they knew in 2021, they actually put out an all call to all federal employees and said, we need you to leave your job and come help us with the crisis, which Deb and I did. And we were deployed together to the Pomona Fairplex in California. And it only took us 2 weeks in case management, looking into the faces of these children, seeing them scared, seeing them have panic attacks, children having to be put on suicide watch, children screaming for their parents, that we knew something was wrong. I mean, we thought this was a family reunification program. When I said, here I am, send me, I thought I was going to be doing puzzles and playing games with children and then sending them to loving homes. We had no idea that we were about to discover this very organized cartel-like trafficking scheme. And it was just a horrible thing. And we, in the very beginning of June of 2021, when we began seeing this, we began reporting. And there were people on the site saying, oh my goodness, you shouldn't say anything. They might send you home. I'm like, I don't care if they send me home. These are children. I am going to speak the truth. Deb was speaking the truth. Aaron Stevenson, who you've had on, Carlos Ariano, who you've had on. We've all been trying to tell the truth to save the kids. Yeah, but once you look into the face of a frightened child, some of whom can't even speak Spanish. So my Spanish skills, my husband's from El Salvador, so I speak Spanish, and that was one of the reasons why I mobilized for the mission, was I knew they needed Spanish speakers. But I'm looking into the faces of children who can't even speak Spanish. They speak Mayan dialects. They're indigenous children that they are preying upon from the hills of Guatemala. It's evil. I've never been that close to evil, Clayton. It's evil.
And I think that maybe speaks to why the mainstream media ignores the story. They'd rather just talk about Trump. They'd rather just talk about Biden. They don't want to talk about this evil. I think people compartmentalize this. We need to shine a light on this because it's so dark. Can you talk about where are these kids coming from? They're having panic attacks without their parents. So are they are coyotes bringing them across the border and they're being dropped at these facilities? How exactly are they arriving in these facilities in the first place before the United States government then traffics them around the other parts of the United States?
Yeah, well, it's a very well organized criminal operation. So I can give you an example of one of our cases out of Texas. There was a Guatemalan living in Texas, and he had children who he was luring from Guatemala, telling them, look, you're making $2.50 a day now, but if you come to the United States, I'm going to pay you $6 an hour. So some of the children are lured, like they believed they were going to be Bill Gates rich, right? Instead of making $2.50 a day, they're more than doubling and tripling their wages. They're like $6 an hour. Wow. So they're lured. Some of them are stolen from their families. Sometimes their families are being sold a bill of goods that, hey, if you send your child to the United States, they're going to be able to send money back to you. And we'll give you money now if you let us take your child. And so sometimes the parents, because again, they live in the hills, many of the children had not been to school, couldn't read or write. And so their families, I can only assume, are the same. They're preying on a very, very vulnerable population to begin with. And then they're bringing them here. Again, it's evil. So the children arrive at our border already knowing who their sponsor is going to be when they get here. If you've seen the news, some people right on the border will show pictures of the children holding up a little piece of paper with the name and a number. So when they present to Border Patrol, our fine Border Patrol take that information as their U.S. point of contact. So that's our Border Patrol. Then they hand them over to HHS, which is where Deb and I were working, and that becomes their sponsor. And that's the number that in 10 to 14 days, come on guys, 10 to 14 days was the goal, was to call that person and say, hey, are you expecting a kid? Hey, let's trade some information over WhatsApp. What's your address? And then we put them on transportation with Carlos, and they're delivered to baggage claim in an airport. So that's how it works. And it's absolutely astounding that the U.S. government last year spent $6.3 billion to traffic these children. And this year we're on track to spend $7.3 billion to put children in labor slavery, sex slavery, and other unspeakable horrors.
And you've testified to this. The United States government knows about this. They know that these children are being sex trafficked. They know that they're being ferreted around the country on flights, on public transport, on other forms of transportation being delivered using taxpayer dollars. And then these children essentially disappear. The numbers I've seen, close to 400,000 children, we have no accounting of them. We don't know where they are. And these children just disappear. So those families back in these indigenous cultures, do they ever hear from their children again?
What's very sad is that the AG of Guatemala, so the Attorney General of Guatemala, has launched an investigation to determine where are the missing children. So no, they don't know where they are. And they're in the middle of a big investigation to try to determine where they are. And sadly, many of them may not even be alive.
What has the Biden administration's response been to your testimony, to you coming forward at the HHS? What has Alejandro Mayorkas or any of the other cabinet secretaries or the Biden administration said about your blowing the whistle on this?
So since walking me off of my job in September of 21, so when I raised the case of a 13-year-old child going to an MS-13 affiliated gang person, that's when they said, okay, we've had enough of Tara Rodas. We have to get rid of her. So they walked me off the site using security in the middle of the day, make me clean out my desk in front of my peers, walk me off the site. It was terrible. Since then, they've had nothing to say to me directly. But when they go to Capitol Hill to testify, for example, Secretary Becerra has said, there are no missing children from our custody. That is called smoke and mirrors, friends, from our custody. So what that means is while HHS has them inside one of their guarded facilities, they're there. But what he's not saying, which is the truth, is once they leave HHS custody, right, and we turn these precious little lives over to these sponsors who are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations like MS-13, 18th Street Gang, cartels, we're handing the kids over. He has no idea where they are once they're out of his custody. So it's a little bit disingenuous to say, oh, there are no missing children in our custody. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd.
Yeah, it's brilliant playing with language like that. And they know about it. You've, of course, testified. What is the Senate committee that you've testified in front of Senator Chuck Grassley and others? What have they made any promises to you? What is their goal now with your testimony and others coming forward? What are they hoping to accomplish?
So the first thing they want to do is shine a light on government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. They want people to see clearly this is what we're really looking at. Secondly, they've introduced a resolution using the CRA or the Congressional Review Act to stop this out-of-control administration who did actually on July 1st put in a whole bunch of rules to make the trafficking of the children easier, if you can imagine. So their goal is to raise awareness and generate phone calls for average Americans to call. And there's a website at America's Future. It's called Stop the Shame, because it's shameful what we're doing with these children. This is not the United States of America. This is not how we treat children. This is definitely not. Nobody would accept this treatment for American children. Yet why is there silence when these are migrant children, indigenous children who can't even speak Spanish? They speak Mayan dialects like Quiche, Quechua, or Mam. These children are completely vulnerable and helpless. It's terrible. So their goal is to highlight the problem and then generate the calls to pass this resolution to get HHS back in check so that they can create new policies around their program. Because for 10 years, HHS has trafficked through the program. For 10 years, there's documented evidence, whistleblowers coming forward, and nothing's been done. So they hope this time, by having people, America's Future is leading the charge. It's called Vote Yay on the CRA. People just click the website, then they click on the map for their state. It's going to show the phone numbers for their senators. We want them to call their 2 senators and then click on the link, put in their zip code. It's going to show them their representative and call their representative. 3 phone calls. That's all we're asking. 3 phone calls to save the children.
Every one of our audience watching right now can make 3 phone calls. We'll have a link in the description. Go to the website, call your senators, make those 3 phone calls. This is, I think, one of the most important stories in America, and no one is talking about it, and it needs more attention. And what are the senators saying about HHS Secretary Javier Becerra? Like, are they? We had impeachment proceedings against Alejandro Mayorkas. Is there a movement now to try to get him thrown out as well?
Well, they've attempted that, but as Senator Ron Johnson mentioned in the hearing yesterday, he was incensed. He got a little hot under the collar, which I can appreciate because this is a very upsetting subject. And he said, we have had more than 30 hearings on this issue to no avail. He's written letters. He wrote letters when I first came out in 2022. He had written letters to both Mayorkas and Becerra, and nobody had anything to say. So he was incensed. A lot of the senators are very upset that the agencies have usurped all oversight. Like, there's no oversight. They're just doing what they want to do, and that's not how our government was designed.
Yeah, when President Trump said that most of these children, I think he said it offhandedly just a few weeks ago, he believes many of these children are dead. I think there was it was a shocking moment, and no real follow up on that. The mainstream media is like, oh, Trump's just being crazy again.
No, I've talked to agents from Homeland Security investigations, and they've said, Tara, it's great that you and all the whistleblower team are getting the word out. Please keep doing that. But you need to understand, I just, for your own mental health, I need you to know that your fight is saving children, but some are no longer alive. And you have to come to grips with that. And that was a sobering moment about a year into the fight when a Homeland Security investigations agent told me that. He said, all these children are not alive. But again, when I heard Trump say it, it was, again, it's a blow because this doesn't have to be this way. We can easily make this change. So Clayton, I appeal to your audience. Your audience is fabulous. They helped us, do some other campaigns in the past. And we really need, this is so important. It's just 3 phone calls. Your voice, the voice of your audience, makes a difference. It really does. And right now, we need to get more people onto the CRA. So vote yay on the CRA. It's going to be really important. Just 3 phone calls to save the lives of children.
And again, we'll have that linked up in the description. Please, everyone watching right now, just take a few minutes and do this. What could be more important right now? I mean, what could be more important than this? Tara, thank you so much for your amazing work on this. And anything that we can do here at Redacted to help, please reach out to us. We will be right there to assist in this. So Tara, thank you so much. Thank you for your testimony yesterday and continued great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton.